Hello, welcome back, as the case may be. I'm Mike, KG4VDK, here to announce the newest release of arcOS, now on to the India release. So if you're wondering, hey, we were just on golf, did we just skip hotel and move straight to India? No, it's just that the YouTube side of things is absolutely my least favorite part of this project. And so hotel did get released. It was just quiet. It's gotten to be tested by a few people, but there's been a couple changes and some fixes. And so India is the new release. So if you're on golf, you could try hotel if you wanted to, but come straight over to India. I think it's even better. To go over a few of the things that are new and or different, we'll start with, firstly, your persistent storage. You now have the option, when you first boot arcOS, you'll be presented with the option to encrypt that persistent storage. It'll be using LUKS encryption, LUKS, the Linux Unified Key System, I think, as a way to encrypt that persistent storage. So you'll be asked for a password to use for that. So if you lose your stick and you have stuff that's kind of sensitive on there and you don't want it to be read by anybody, that's available for you to encrypt. Do be aware, if you encrypt that persistent storage and then you try to plug in your USB stick to like a Windows or a Mac device, if they don't have software on board that can read a LUKS encrypted partition, you may not be able to access the persistent storage outside of arcOS. You'll still be able to boot from arcOS even on a Windows or a Mac if it happens to be bootable on your Mac. But accessing the persistent storage outside of arcOS may be impossible, or at least more difficult, if you do encrypt that persistent storage. Also, you now have the ability, if you use arcOS in the same location all the time and you just want to have it, just hit the power button on your machine and have it go ahead and configure everything for you without having to hit OK on the station setup window. That's possible now. Once you get everything set up the way you like it, just go into your arcOS data, the top level of your persistent storage, and create an empty text file. So you just have to have a file that exists named .autoconfig. That'll be a little hidden file, but if that file exists, arcOS, when it boots up, will recognize that file exists and just use whatever the last information that was put into the station setup to configure itself, so you won't have to hit OK on station setup. So for me and Diego, thank you, it was you who suggested this in the first place. One way this could be used is I have a laptop in my truck, and so I can just hit the power button on the laptop. If you encrypted your persistent storage, you'll still have to put in a password for that. But if you don't encrypt your persistent storage, it'll see the auto config file. Go ahead and set it up using my mobile QRV profile, and then I can have a user module set to run to automatically open the Yak APRS client. That's what I'm usually running in the truck anyway. So that way, all I have to do is hit the power button on the laptop in the truck, and I can take off, and in just a few seconds I have an APRS client up and running in the truck. For those that use Pat Winlink, if you've noticed this, I ran into this, weekly check-in for our AriesNet. I use the templated form in Pat Winlink, and every now and then I will misclick, open the wrong form, need to close it, and then I can't get back to the forms without closing the Winlink client, the browser window that's open. That's because it wasn't set to open in a new window. So now the forms will open in a new window, so you can close out of them and get back to what you need to do. The other thing I found was if you were to open a form, realize it's the wrong one, close it, open the right one, and try to post it, you'll get an error about an invalid session key. And that was tied to the way Pat, I think, is using cookies to remember which form has been opened and maybe hasn't been acted upon. So in the India release of arcOS, the Pat Winlink web app is how that is set up, as a web app. So that is now set up to use a private or like an incognito window, so it doesn't remember cookies. So if you get hit with that invalid session data or whatever it was called, just close the pat window. Your message, you may have to redo that, but you can just close it, and when you reopen it, you won't be hit with that error again because that cookie never got saved. The Pat Winlink client, down in the panel or in the arcOS tools menu in the main menu, you can use that now to set your Winlink password. And then once you've got it set, you can use the right click on the Pat Winlink icon, or from the arcOS tools menu, use the save Pat Winlink config, and that'll give you the option to save it to a QRV profile. I named mine default so that anytime you don't have another QRV profile, if you have one named default where that's where you have everything set that you like all the time, that's not tied to a mobile profile or a POTA profile or something like that. If there's a default profile, that will be what gets used. So that's a good way to save your Pat Winlink password. In previous versions, if there wasn't a GPS device attached, there was no reference in the station information on the screen to what grid square you had put into the station setup window. So you might know your grid square, but maybe you need to reference it later, and you knew it when you put it into the window, but now you don't remember it and you need to give it to somebody. So now, even if there's not a GPS device attached, whatever grid square you put into the station setup window will be populated in the station info. So you can have it there as a visual reference. Then if you plug in a GPS, it'll show you what the actual one is. Once you've got your GPS fix, it'll show you the grid square and the coordinates. So if it's a GPS or a grid square and coordinates, you've got a good GPS fix. If it's just your grid square, that's just pulling from the station setup window whatever you manually entered. Next to the GPS coordinates, you may notice sometimes a little clock icon. That is to let you know that you are currently using GPS as your time source. So if you're not on a network, so if you're on a internet connection, you're going to be using a network time server. But let's say you're off doing a POTA, you don't have internet, and you've got GPS fix, you'll have a little clock icon next to the GPS coordinates to let you know that you're using a GPS time source for your clock. Support. Obviously, we've got GitHub. You can reach out by email. It's pretty easy to find me. But the other way we can do that now, I have an IRC chat set up, arcOS Linux on Libera chat. But once you're in arcOS, connect to a network, open up your main menu, and in the left hand side you'll see an icon that's hex chat. That's the IRC client, and it is automatically configured when you open it up to drop you into the arcOS Linux chat room with your username as your call sign. You can also access the chat room from the website arcos-linux.com. Up under the support tab, you can find the IRC web chat, and you can drop yourself in there. Feel free to put in your call sign there. By default, I think it puts in visitor and just a randomly assigned number, but feel free to put your name or your call sign, whatever you want to put in there. If I'm hanging around in the office, I may be the one that gets to answer you. If we all kind of get on board, maybe there'll be some other folks hanging out in there and you have a question that somebody else has figured out a way to do or can help walk you through it. Or if you just have some kind of question, some issue that you run into, just reach out and we'll see if we can get you sorted out. Just hang out there if you want to. Maybe plan to do a little scheduled QSO with somebody if you want to try that. Just say, hey, I'm going to be on 40 meters doing Hellschreiber or something. Pick something weird. Let's get weird with stuff and play around. And maybe find some other folks that are using the same system as you and find a way to meet new people that are using the same thing you're using. There's also now a field manual. One of the, I won't say it was a complaint, one of the critiques I got was that there was not a lot of documentation for this. And not that I didn't agree with that, but it takes time. So now there is, when you open up arcOS, or when you boot into arcOS, open up your home directory, little folder icon down on the panel. That'll drop you right in your home directory, and you'll find there that is supplied from the modules on GitHub. So you won't need to be connected to the internet unless there's been an update to it, but there's a field manual in PDF form there that you can, I printed out, 4 pages per sheet, cut it up, get down to the size that works for me. And it's got some helpful tips in there about how to do some certain things, like in Winlink, for example, position reports, and how to request nearby stations or a particular station and that sort of thing. Handy information. So that's in there. And then a thing that was promised is now available. Vara, both FM and HF, are up and running. This is the one thing that costs money. Everything else about arcOS is totally free. Vara is not free and open source software. I don't mind that he charges a license fee to get the full speeds, but it's not open source. And making Windows software work in Linux isn't always the easiest things. That was something that took quite a bit of work. So that's what I am charging money for. If you would like to unlock the Vara capabilities in arcOS, you can purchase an unlock key, and I'll add your call sign to that key file. Then you can use the arcOS tools, download keys, and once you've gotten confirmation from me that I've gotten your key added, once you download that key, just reboot, and it'll recognize that you have a valid key, and it'll go ahead and run the Vara installers. Once they have run one time, there's no need for them to run again. It'll save everything about that installed version of Vara, and then deploy it on future boots. And everything needed to install Vara is provided in the Vara modules, so you don't have to worry about whether or not you've got an internet connection when it's time to install Vara. As long as you've got your key on board, you boot into arcOS, it'll recognize your key, it'll help you walk through installing Vara, ask you for your Vara registration code if you have one. If you want to unlock all the full speed stuff, put in your Vara registration code that you've bought from that developer, and it'll be available in the main menu under the wine category because it is Windows software. So that's most of the stuff that's new. There's been a few under the hood things that have changed. One being that there is Firefox got changed over to the extended support release version instead of just the regular Firefox. There were a couple things that broke with the Winlink web app on the old Firefox, or the regular Firefox, when they did a version bump. And I realized that since we're a live OS that doesn't get updated as often, it's probably wiser for us to be on the extended support release anyway. So Firefox ESR is what we're using now. Software versions got bumped on a couple things. RDOP CF got a version bump. They went up one point release. The Yak APRS client went from 203 to 204. And what else? Who else went up? I don't remember right off the top of my head. User Travis let me know that he had tried to install arcOS onto an SD card and got hit with the inability to configure persistent storage. And turns out he was absolutely right. When the persistent storage script runs on first boot, it's looking for like dev SDA or a dev NVMe if you're one of those people that puts it on your internal solid state drive. But it was not looking for SD cards at dev MMC BLK blah blah blah. That's been fixed, so Travis, put it on your SD card. It works. I had a Dell laying around that'll boot from an SD card, so I've been able to test that. It worked, so let me know if you have any problems with that, but I believe that is working. Thunderbird as an email client for regular internet email, is included now, and whenever you use it, if you configure your email address in there and you've been using it, that's persistently saved. so you don't have to put it in every time. Firefox does a similar thing. Like if you save bookmarks and that kind of stuff, they should persist. So Firefox bookmarks and Thunderbird for email. If you happen to be a PGP user with your email, the GnuPG directory is now persistent. So if you create a PGP key to do encrypted email, you've got the ability to save those keys, or if you need to use those keys to sign documents to send over the air, to sign documents and send over the air. Don't encrypt documents and send them over the air. But using it to sign is a way to validate that it actually did come from you. So that's can be a handy thing. I think that's about it that I have for this announcement. We'll do a quick little walkthrough and just kind of show off some of those things I've talked about that are new. But India is released. I hope you enjoy it. Have a happy holiday season, and let me know if you have any issues, any complaints, any concerns, any requests. Not that I can necessarily implement all of the requests, but I may be able to help you do it as a user module, or if it's something that I feel like will benefit the whole community, it may be something that can get pulled in. I'd also be interested if anybody is willing to share some images. Maybe you've gone to a POTA. I'd like them to remain somewhat radio related, so a nice landscape shot. If you go do a POTA somewhere, that we could maybe implement and pull in as some user contributed wallpapers available for folks. If that's something you're interested in, maybe reach out on GitHub or shoot me an email, and we'll walk through how to do that. We're going to make sure that everything is licensed appropriately, so something like a Creative Commons license or something like that for that image. So just be willing to share that image with everybody is what I'm trying to say there. But if you've got an image that you have taken, please don't try to submit some AI images. Let's keep this stuff that we've done. But please share that, and I'd like to let you show off some of the places that you've found to go play radio. So with that, let's jump over and we'll do a quick walkthrough. All right, here we are booted into the India release. You'll see I don't have a GPS device connected currently, but the first thing you're going to be presented with is the question of whether or not you want to encrypt your persistent storage. If you select no, everything about persistent storage works exactly the way it has in previous releases. So let's show how it works. If you select yes, so yes, I want to encrypt my persistent storage, proceed. It's going to ask me for what password I want to use for my persistent storage. I'm just going to put in my call sign for that. So set password. It's going to be creating that encrypted persistent storage. So we'll go from having no persistent storage down here at the bottom to now we have persistent storage. Give it just a second and go from 0 bytes because that's not accurate. Give it just a second. Now it recognizes this is a 64 gig flash drive. So about 4 gigabytes is the operating system, and then the remainder is set as persistent storage. One thing that pops up to let you know that some features are locked by default. Wine and Vara don't function out of the box unless you purchase an unlock key to get Vara working. So to do that, you can make sure you're connected. Make sure you're connected to the internet, and once you are connected to the internet, you can use arcOS tools, download keys. That key file has now been downloaded. So when we fill out station setup, it'll check and see if your call sign has an authorized key. And if so, it's going to go ahead and run the Vara modules. Well, while we're waiting for that, I'm going to plug in my GPS device, and we'll see that we're now waiting for a GPS lock here. So we'll give that some time to do that while we're running through this other stuff. So call sign, name, city, state, and then I'll put in my grid square. So it recognizes that arcOS is unlocked for KG4VDK because I do have an authorized call sign in there. So the first thing it's going to do is do a first run of the Vara modules to get them installed. Again, once they've been installed this one time, they'll just deploy automatically in the future. You don't have to worry about running through the installers each time. So give it just a moment to get the wine environment set up to be ready for those installers to run. And then once they run, or once they pop up, you'll just kind of quick click through them. So finish that up, and then we run through accepting the agreements. First one that runs is Vara FM, installed successfully. It doesn't matter if you have this launch my program enabled or not, it's going to kill it right off the bat because it's not quite ready to go yet. So now we're on Vara HF, quick click through those. It'll ask you if you have a Vara registration code. If you have one, you can type it in there, hit OK, or you can just leave it blank. Doesn't matter which you choose. If you end up deciding you want to purchase the Vara registration code from that developer in the future, come up to arcOS data, your QRV call sign directory saved, and then under Vara there's a file called registration code. Just put your registration code in there, and then the next time Vara gets deployed, it'll pull in your registration code so that you'll have access to the full speed features of Vara. Make that message go away. Once you've got your call sign is QRV, that means I am ready. That means everything for the deployment of all your modules has been done and your station is actually ready for use. So the Vara stuff is available here in the wine category, Vara HF, Vara FM. You can open those up. You got your Vara stuff running. I mentioned in the earlier part of the video that some software got version bumps. One that I forgot to mention was HamRS. HamRS, we've moved to the HamRS Pro, which shipped with version 2.21.4, but 2.1.5 is available, as you see, with that little pop-up. Updates can be handled through your package manager or by downloading the latest app image. We'll be doing it by using the latest app image. So you'll see here in HamRS down at the very bottom of the window, there's the version number 2.21.4 as arcOS shipped with it. But if you want to use the newer version, just go grab the latest app image from hamrs.app. Download the newest app image, and once you've got it downloaded, open up your QRV call sign saved directory, open up the HamRS directory. There's nothing in there right now, but once we've got our new app image downloaded, got it. We'll just grab it, Control C, Control V, copy it over here. The only thing you need to change at this point is to rename it. Instead of having all the version numbers and everything after it, just rename it hamrs.appimage. Once that has been renamed as hamrs.appimage, if you rerun your station setup, it'll get everything deployed. And one of the things that HamRS module does is look for hamrs.appimage. If it exists, it will deploy that one for you. So now when we open HamRS, one, we won't get a pop-up that tells us there's a new version because we've just deployed the newest version. And you can verify that down here at the bottom that version 2.21.5 is now the current version. I mentioned autoconfig. To get that working, you can go into your top level of arcOS data. That's where those keys live when you downloaded your arcOS keys, if you did that. But same here in this top level directory, just create a new empty document. Doesn't have to have anything in it, and just name it .autoconfig. And then the next time you run your station setup, you don't have to touch a station setup window. It just sees that file and it automatically runs whatever you put in there last time. So that goes in there. If you want to save your Winlink password for use, wait till you got your QRV up there. So now that we're all deployed and ready to go, we can set our Winlink password. Type in whatever your Winlink password is. Hit OK. That'll let you know your password is set, but that won't survive a reboot. To make it survive a reboot, you can either right-click on Winlink and do Save Winlink Config, or that's also available here under arcOS Tools. You can save Winlink Config. It's going to ask you which QRV profile you want to save that to. Default is auto-populated there because that's where I think most people will end up putting things first, at least. But the way the default QRV profile works, you can have other ones, like one for mobile or one for POTA or whatever special reason you need to have a profile for. But anything that's in the default profile, let's say you make a mobile profile and you did not save Winlink stuff into the mobile profile. You don't need to do that. The mobile profile would run, and then anything that's in the default profile will also run. So if you want to save something special about Winlink in your mobile profile, that's great. It'll actually deploy that one. But anything that doesn't exist in some other QRV profile will fall back to the default profile if one exists. So the default profile is just kind of a foundation for anything that you want to always be in play. So maybe you like to have your like I said, Winlink is probably the best example of what you might want to have in a default profile. So go ahead and hit OK. And now, because I have the auto config turned on, I won't get a station setup window, but if I wanted to change that, we'll just get rid of the auto config file. And now when I run station setup, I will have the option to select my new profile. Run through that, gets everything deployed, and now you'll see down here a QRV profile that has been deployed is the default profile. I do have my GPS plugged in now, so I have my grid square as supplied by the GPS fix. Prior to that, it was just the grid square that was plugged in with the station setup window. But now that we have a GPS fix, we get the grid square and the GPS coordinates. So if you notice you've got GPS coordinates, you can also know that the grid square is actually being accurately reported by the GPS. I had mentioned the field manual. So if you go into your home directory, let's turn off hidden files. You can open up your, I'm going to turn off Wi-Fi so we can see that clock icon pop up for GPS. You got the field manual here. Feel free to scroll through it and see what's in there. Some of the most helpful stuff I think can be up here at the top, specifically support. You've got the IRC chat channel that you can drop yourself into. Also on GitHub. If you find something that you think may be a bug or you're just not sure how it's supposed to work, go over on GitHub and open up a discussion topic first. Don't start with an issue ticket, but start a discussion topic. We can always turn that into an issue if it is truly a bug, and we can work on it that way. But don't start with an issue ticket. Let's start with a discussion, and we can triage it and turn it into an issue if needed. Some information that's helpful when you're reporting something. Make sure to include a full system report the way to do that is to go to Menu. You can go to System Info, and then copy that to a clipboard, or if you wanted to upload that system information, it'll generate a link that you can use to send that in GitHub without having to copy it all in there. But I have copied it to the clipboard, so let's take a look at what's in there in a text editor real quick. Paste that in. What this gives us is a little bit about your system. It automatically kind of obfuscates anything that might be important, like your serial number on your machine and anything like that you don't want to be sharing with everybody. But specifically, we get a list of all of the USB devices that are connected to the computer, so we could determine, like, oh look, there's the type of GPS you're using. If you're having an issue with GPS, we get an idea of which GPS you're actually using. So that can be very helpful in determining what's going on, which drives are attached. So I've got my USB drive here. You can see what model it is, and then it reports as dev SDA. Just some helpful things, like if you're having internet issues, maybe it's down to a wireless chipset on your machine that's not compatible with the Linux kernel. So if we can have an idea of which wireless chipset you're using, that'll give us some helpful places to start while we're troubleshooting. So that's how to do a system report. And then just read through this. It's a field manual. It's a fine field manual. I would suggest you RTFM, read the fine manual. Go through it, see if there's anything helpful in there. If there's anything that you think is missing, let me know. We'll get it added in there to try to make this as helpful as it can be for everybody. I know documentation can be weird sometimes, but I think if we can all work together, we can get this in a state where it's actually helpful for more people. Something specific that I think is helpful in here is under Pat Winlink. Tells you how you can go about saving your RMS list, so your list of gateways that are available. That is something that's saved persistently, so if you keep that up to date on a regular basis, you'll always have your most recent copy available. Also, position reports. If you needed to request the nearest 30 position reports in your area, or however far away you want to reach out, whatever the 30 closest ones to you from the last 10 days, here's how you can do that. It is case sensitive, so in your to field, it's capital inquiry, capital request, and then capital WL2K nearby in the body. Request the last report from one particular station. That's how you do that, or to request the last n number of reports from a single station. That's how you could pull those in. So there's just a little bit about how to use some of the things that are already here included in arcOS. We see now I've got my GPS plugged in, got my grid square, got my coordinates, and I've got a clock icon. Because I'm no longer on a network using a network time server, we have a clock up here that lets us know that we're using GPS as a time source. I mentioned for support, you can use IRC as one option to try to reach out and get support. So once you're connected to a network, over here in the main menu on the left, you've got Hex Chat. Click on that, give it just a second. It'll drop you, so it logs you into IRC at Libera Chat, and then automatically will drop you into the arcOS Linux chat channel. It'll use the call sign that you're logged in with using the station setup. So you'll see I'm in here as KG4VDK. arcOS Dev is actually the build station that's here in the office with me. So if I'm actually sitting at the desk over there and you send the message, I'll get it. And I may be able to respond to it, but I may not be here at the computer. But feel free to leave a message. If you don't get a response, maybe drop an email address that I could reach you at, or some other way to get in contact with you to help work with you to maybe get you figured out. There's been some other folks that have been hanging out in that chat channel, and I'm hoping that maybe we get more folks in there that can help other users, so we can kind of work as a team. And if you've got a question, even if I can't answer it, maybe there's somebody else hanging around that can. I mentioned Thunderbird being included. If you go under your internet category, you've got Thunderbird Mail. You can configure your account here. Once you've got your account configured, that is saved persistently. So the next time you boot into arcOS, it'll just deploy your Thunderbird profile that you've already got set up and have all of your mailboxes and everything all ready to go, and you can just check for new messages and use it that way. I also mentioned PGP keys, so if you needed to, let's see, keys. This pops up that says the collection seems to be empty. That's accurate because this lives in the .GnuPG directory, and you'll see here there are no keys. They're just some default files that are put in here. So if you want to create a new PGP key, you just back up one from that collection as empty page and use the plus icon up here, create a new GPG key. Let's see, I'll just use my call sign. You can add an email address if you intend to use this with Thunderbird email. You can attach it to an email address so that any mail you send out, or if anybody needs to send one to you, it's tied to that particular email address. Put a comment on there if you want to. Once you've created that, it'll be asking you if you want to use a passphrase for that key. So if you want to password protect that key, go ahead. You don't have to. If it's something you feel like you can keep in your possession and it's not going to fall into somebody else's hands, no need to put a passphrase in there. Once that's been generated, you'll see you got some new directories here. That's where your keys actually live. And then there's your key. Open it up. If you need to share that public key with somebody else, don't share your secret key with anybody else, but if you need to export your public key, you can do that, and then just share that with whoever might need to have access to that. If you want to see what that actually looks like, there's what the PGP key looks like. Once you've got a key, you can encrypt files with that. So if I wanted to encrypt this, which wouldn't make a lot of sense to encrypt a file that people need to be able to get, it's a public key, but just for as an example, if I wanted to encrypt that, it'll ask me, who do I want to encrypt that to? I'm going to encrypt that so it's to myself. I'm going to sign it as myself, and now we have the encrypted version of that file. So if I delete the unencrypted version of it, because I have the key needed to decrypt this, as soon as I double click it, we'll see that it has a good signature. I'm the one that signed it, and here it is again. Now it's been decrypted, so I am able to decrypt that file because I have the key for it. So that is how that works. I think that covers just about everything that I wanted to cover here. So again, happy holiday season. I hope you'll go try India, give it a go, see what you like about it. If you find anything that's a problem, please let me know. If you have any ideas that you'd like to share, please do. And remember, this project survives on donations. So if you enjoy this project, you want to keep seeing it moving forward, please go over to arcos-linux.com, and up in the main menu bar, there's an option to send a donation. Small or large, they all make a difference, and that's what helps keep this project moving, helps keep me motivated and let me know that folks are enjoying it. So if you don't mind, if you've got a little bit to spare, I'd very much appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Again, go enjoy it, have fun with it, go play radio. Don't be too cold out there, and stay safe. We'll talk to you later.